Welcome to yet another episode of Dexian Talks, the Global Capability Center Leader Series, where we bring you conversations from various different visionaries who are shaping India's GCC landscape. Today we're honored to host somebody whose career spans over 25 years across retail, fintech, consulting and global operations. He has built and transformed GCC at Giant Eagle, Cabbage, Target, JCPenney and most recently the Catalyst Brands India. Please welcome Mr. Kaushik Das, a leader, a mentor, a storyteller, AI enthusiast and a people-first executive with our host Mr. Kumar Rajagopalan, the country head and the vice president of Dexian India, and Mr. Anilesh Seth, who is a GCC advisor.
Dexian Talk. We are trying to bring in the GCC series. This is for those who have successfully built a GCC in India, and at the same time, if any learnings which is possible for any of the mid-tier companies to come to India, they can probably get benefited out of this discussion. So this is more like a discussion. That's why it's called Dexian Talk. And of course, my mentor guide and for all of us, the Professor Anilesh will guide us through most of the discussions, lead us through the points, and look forward to hearing from you the valuable insight about the GCCs. All set, gentlemen? We can go?
Looking forward to learning from your insights and experience.
Fantastic.
It's an absolute pleasure being here with both of you and especially with Anilesh. I think every time we meet, there's always something that I take back as a learning. So looking forward.
Fantastic. So let's start with an interesting question because every time when I meet a GCC person, it always comes out with an interesting background. Yours is Masters in
Genetics and molecular biology.
Yeah. Microbiology. What is to do with GCC? How did you land up into the GCC world?
Look, it's a very interesting question because when you start, you don't think or know you will end up here, right? You start, and this is a very interesting part which I think we should talk about at some point is the whole aspect of change that comes across, right? When I was in college, post graduation, I did not have a plan B.
Okay.
So the plan A was I will do this course, genetics and molecular biology, go to US, do some research, and being a Bengali, always loved teaching and all of that. So that was only plan A to Z. There was no B, and it did not happen.
Okay.
So very early in my career, I faced the challenge, the stumble block of things always don't work the way you want to.
Okay.
Now when I look back 25 years, I think I'm thankful it happened then, but at that point I was not thankful. I went into a stage which probably you can today call depression. Okay. Right? I didn't know what to do because there was no plan B. I did not equip myself with a skill at that point, coming from a suburb Bengal, suburbs of Calcutta. I didn't know what to do. So I ended up kind of entirely reopening another book in a call center.
Okay.
So one of my friends called me from Gurgaon, like, look, you come over, there are these nice swanky offices, you can work at night, get paid nice, you have to wear a headset and you have to take a fake name and a fake accent. So I did all of that and I joined G Capital in the industrial vertical and then started making calls for JCPenney collections. So it's interesting. My first 4 months was doing JCPenney collections.
Interesting.
Which again, full circle. 25 years later, I was the MD of their India unit. So, anyways, but long story short, I think you never know what the next turn of the road leads to. I think when I look back, what I was open to was the learning that I don't have a secondary or a tertiary skill set. Which later led me to create platforms and opportunities for the teams so that we as organizations, as individuals are more equipped and also, openly took on whatever came in the way and made most of it. And probably as we go through the discussions, we'll kind of talk more about it. But it was absolutely no predetermined. It was took the turn as it comes and made most of it.
Okay, so interesting. So genetics. You're nowhere near the genetics right now. You moved away from that one. Technology person and getting into GCC. I'm a finance person. Is a commonality in GCC that like people with varied background can come into that one? Is that something, and that too in the leadership position?
Absolutely. Short story. See, it's not a rocket science, right? And as we go through and as I speak, we'll see if someone like me could make something out of it in 25 years. It's possible if you have the right things in the right place. But going back to the genetics part, interestingly, there's a big part of genetics is about the theory of evolution. Right, and this is where you talk about Darwin's postulates of survival of the fittest, and how certain traits in one generation makes you differentiated so that you can survive the change around you.
Okay.
And I think some of those concepts were so embedded that I think from a very grassroots level, it really helped me to relate to what I was going through at that point of my journey. And then in later stages, translate it to the organization's journey.
Okay.
That when change happens around you, there are certain basic tenets, basic elements in your journey, in your skill set that really sets you apart and makes you equipped to embrace what is coming next.
That's right.
We can at some point leapfrog to the AI discussion, but we'll come there.
Yeah.
But I think those are the things which I take back. That how do you focus on keeping yourself relevant at the different stages? And look, the GCC itself has been around for about 2 decades. The whole GCC organism has changed.
That's right.
The way it is, So being aware of what the change directionally is. We survived the Y2K, then we came through the whole big data stage. Now we are talking AI. Somewhere in between there was blockchain, right? It's still there. So I think through all of these, what is more relevant, what is more timeless is business results.
That's right.
And keeping it simple, if someone's got the right frame of mind at the right place, I think anyone can do it.
Fantastic. Survival of the fittest, you said that it's not only for you, even for GCCs right now. It's a compulsion that the GCCs are coming just to make sure that they are surviving in the industry with a lot of talents being there. So, any opening views for you?
I'm actually going to come back to you because I'm very fascinated with this nexus between genetics and GCCs, right? Which is now the first GCC, the credit of the first GCC is given to Texas Instruments. Way back in 1985, right? And when you look at it, one of the earlier ones, and you worked with GE, one of the earlier ones was GE, and at that time, everybody looked at GE for what GE was doing, right? So we had a few other companies coming in and setting up GCCs.
Yeah.
And this trend continued till about 2010, when we had about 750 GCCs. After 2010, it's kind of exploded.
That's right.
Right. That's really, and this is after the Lehman crisis. So here's the connection between the genetics and the GCCs. How has the DNA of GCCs evolved from then to now?
So it's a very interesting question. Had it been genetics, I would have said it was very thoughtful mutation. But
very thoughtful mutation,
right?
Okay,
but if we peel it out, if we decouple some of these aspects, DNA itself, like the core components of DNA. I think the first band of GCCs that we saw in the first decade or the early part of the first decade was more from an offshoot of service providers.
That's right.
Right. So the thought process, the bent of mind, the ways of operating, the ways of communicating, the ways of aligning with the organization and culture was very different.
So the mindset was of a service provider?
Mindset was of service provider / order taker / delivery.
Okay.
Based on SLAs, and that was the premise. The premise did not go beyond that. Because again, we have to be very thoughtful that the bunch of folks who really came out of the pond to do something like this brought in the traits of that pond, which is again, being a service provider, I know my SLAs, I know my delivery, and this is what I do best. So you bring that best and then try and construct something which is probably a bit different. And that was an amazing next step. Today, when we look back and say probably that was maybe a transitional state. But the second generation of GCCs, when we talk about, let's say the 2010, I mean, I joined Target being my first, that was my first day job, by the way, where I was going to office in a daytime. Actual daytime and not from a night shift to day, and evenings back at home, and we don't know what to do.
Big mind shift.
So personally, it was a big shift for me. I remember day one when I came back home, and I'm still at home in the evening, and both me and my wife are like, okay, what do we do now? That was a big shift, because then so you mentioned GE being a a GCC, right, we were still a service provider, third party.
right.
I was wearing a headset. I was using a fake name and a fake accent to talk to people in US where I was not even allowed to tell I'm calling from India. This was 2002.
Right.
2002, right? So that decade saw a big shift. During my last stints at GE, this was around 2005-6, we were told that now you can share your name. Now you can say that you are calling from India. So that was a big shift from the ecosystem, and that was the initial days, the building blocks of it. Fast forward 2010, I think we saw the second generation of GCCs, leaders, people who started, people like me, we probably covered almost a decade by then. We were trying to take what we have learned, but also bring in the new elements, many of us, right? But what also happened by then was technology had kind of taken wings. So the aspect of that, this center is just not about taking orders. By that time, the other big piece that happened in various areas or domains was the business context. So by then, the business context had well set, be it retail, be it CPG, BFSI, because folks who started 10 years before have already spent so much doing the processes. The knowledge had accumulated and have kind of taken to the next level. They were able to really articulate that I know this, but this can be done in a much more efficient way like this. So that's where we started talking value.
Fantastic.
Right, from just cost, move your work to a low cost geography where you get 1/9 of your stuff, and that was only arbitrage for the first decade. But that's when 2010, 11, where we started talking, I have done this process, but I feel this can be done in this way, and we started having those conversations. I was a target. I remember the first time we started talking about analytics. It was no longer talking about the finance processes or transaction. We started talking analytics. That was when analytics started as a function at Target India, and I was one of those initial members who started working on merchandising analytics. And the thought process was that we will do the assortment planning. But we will also go and tell the buyers that how he or she should be assorting the shelves. Right? And the first attempt was a disaster. I had a bunch of folks, a couple of interns from IISc, who did a nice fancy segmentation analysis, segmentation report, and we went into the buyer of chocolates, which is a very high category buyer, stuff, and we told that, hey, you should be putting your Hershey's, the mid packs of your Hershey's here, in the lead end of the middle shelf. And the whole meeting, today we have Teams, those days it was link meeting, right? It exploded. He walked off saying that a bunch of kids who has never seen a store, how can they come and tell me where I should be putting my Hershey's? This was the exact scenario. So we took a step back. That's when we started threading in the aspect of storytelling. That I cannot go straight in front of the leader and say, because I'm so confident of my R square, I know you have to put it here. We started talking about the story that this is what will help you lift your sales. We started talking the business language. So from business context, translating that into a mathematical problem and then retranslating it back as a business concept. You talk in the person's language, so there's more receptibility. So it's
the creativity at the highest.
We had those journeys, right? And those things are something which today probably we have playbooks, today we have courses, but we never had courses, right? So we went back to the drawing board, picked up a category which was more friendly, ready to drink water category. Nobody, confronts with water, no conflicts. We told, put this category next to your baby diapers, you will see your lift in sales. Because we were confident of our R square. And it happened over 2 quarters, and gradually there was acceptance that built across the entire organization. So analytics in 2 years, 3 years became a 400-member organization at Target, kind of servicing different parts of the organization.
Fantastic. So you touched one interesting point here. From a fake name to all the way creating a brand identity and making a storytelling, tell somebody in a store that you should do this. That means it has you have transformed from one end to the other end. How was the feeling?
I would say more than feeling, it was the journey itself, right? and especially for someone like me who was a complete outsider. I did not even go to a B school or learned the basics of business the way at that point of time it was expected that you would learn, right? I came from an academic bent of mind, but I think for me what worked, Kumar, was that in very early I stumbled and I realized that you always don't get what you want and you have to cope with change. So I became very uninhibited in embracing the next thing. For me, it needs to be done, we'll do it. No
Oh,
big deal.
interesting. Like we discussed about it
Yes.
a generation back, like the no polishing school.
Oh, absolutely.
So I went with a very open mind because after coming from my post graduation, I started back in a call center and I was only telling myself that look, this is the time you grasp most of it. That was the hustler part of my journey, right? That just take it in.
I like that terminology.
Yeah, I mean my first, I would say, the G and the IBM period. The first 4-5 years was the hustler period,
Okay.
where I came with a pretty blank slate, took in everything that came in, and when you are in GE, you also take in a lot of the sigmas and the leans and everything, right? So,
Right.
so you have to go through that. That also shapes you in certain way, your mentality on the way you approach different processes of the business,
Yeah.
right? So went through all of that, but I think what it also helped me is always take a big picture view of things.
Okay.
That whenever you get into something, always try and understand what's the upstream and downstream, what's the big scenario, and then you zoom in and don't start from a zoomed in view. So I think that's something from early on I realized that I am comfortable with the ambiguity, the ton of stuff thrown around me, and then gradually coming in with a very open mind and give it a shape. So that helped when we were going through, and again I was a domain agnostic person, coming from something very different planet. For me at that point, so when I started in G, it was financial services. The JCPenney was for collections. The cards used to be there in the store.
Right.
So it was financial services. And then I went into retail for a brief period, fintech, now back in retail, who knows what's next. But I think being open, keeping it simple always helps.
So I'm going to ask you this thing. We've talked about the connection between genetics and GCCs, and you talked about how it has moved. You didn't use the word cost per employee, but you said it's moved from cost per employee to value.
Value.
So when we look at value per employee, let's just take a look at that being as the gold standard today. The question I have to ask, and I have my own opinion on this, is how do you define value per employee?
Especially in the context of GCC.
Exactly.
So
It's a definitely a very nice googly, right? I'll tell you.
obviously you're a cricket player, right? Like so.
I spent most of my time playing cricket,
So
and I was almost thrown out of my college during my days. So
we'll come to the cricket, but like this googly is nothing.
no, so that's
it's a flat pitch.
interesting. I think the connotation of value, the way I see it personally, is very relative to the charter of the organization. If I have set up as an entity which is somewhere in US, Europe, Australia, I have set up an office in India, and my charter is only cost, that I've shifted my work to a low cost geography, and I will only think cost for next 2 years, then my definition of value is very different. Then even though the GCC is bringing me a ton of innovation, I might still go back and try and equate with what is my cost per employee. So that is very relative to the journey of that GCC, right? If I am setting up the center, and we see a ton of those nano GCCs today, right? They are coming in with a very specific charter in mind.
Yes.
That I will do only product, or I will do only finance operations.
That's right.
And I will not have something which I already have in my home office. I will build a niche skill here. So then your question of value, or the connotation of value, the definition of value changes. Then I'm starting from something which I don't have a benchmark for, and then my value is something that I create and then I build and then I define. So
I get what you're saying. So it's kind of like I'm letting the googly go.
so this is me, front foot, bat up, ball goes to the keeper. But honestly, I think you will hear me saying this again, and you and I have spoken many times, Anilesh, is it all depends on what the parent organization wants to go, where they want to go, and how they want to grow. Because a GCC, you have to understand, is not a separate entity altogether. It's a part of the bigger organization, right?
So just one second, I'm interrupting you. I know,
Sure,
I realize that.
No.
But just again, staying with the same thing on value, right? And you said depends upon where the parent company wants to go. Absolutely, I'm with you on that. Is it also dependent a little bit upon how a particular ecosystem may have matured in India, the ability to derive that value? For example, how can a GCC derive value? Is it better in, let's say, a place like Bangalore versus a place like Hyderabad?
It's not a googly now. It's like
I read it in the flight, so I can more confidently put my foot forward here. Yes, it does, and I think that ecosystem of talent, ecosystem of skills, ecosystem of talent at different levels, I think it really matters a lot, right? Because of course, when a GCC is being set up, the expectation is that within X number of years or months, like it could be 18 months, it could be 24 months,
Yeah.
you reach a certain level where the delivery, the outcomes,
Yeah.
the results are meeting certain expectations. And the only thing that can get you there faster or on time is a good talent.
Yeah.
And when I say talent, it is not just your skills, it's the business knowledge that we have in the ecosystem today. It's the maturity of the leadership levels. You are talking about frontline leaders, mid managers, senior leadership. So all of this is what I feel is a part of that ecosystem, which, and I've been in Bangalore for about 20 years, and I feel this has really reached a stage where you name a skill, you name a level of proficiency, you name a domain kind of leadership, you get everything. You just have to be like your prompts these days. You have to be the more articulated you are, you can get what you want in this market, and that's the beauty of this ecosystem.
Okay, so I'm just going to interrupt here because you're a Bangalorean, though from Calcutta, but like you're now in Bangalore for quite a long time.
20 years.
I'm going to interview somebody there in the Hyderabad segment of it, or Chennai. But back to that question, how different Bangalore ecosystem compared to Hyderabad?
I think
If it is
and
not
see,
bothering you,
I'm very
question.
familiar with Hyderabad ecosystem as well, and I think it's very thriving, right? And an ecosystem is not just infrastructure, and when we say ecosystem, it's just not the infrastructure with or without the traffic. We'll take it, right? Because that's kind of a constant for both the cities now.
True.
I still think Bangalore is worse.
Yeah, I mean, yes, I have to drive here. I don't drive there, so either way. But I think the ecosystem needs time to grow, thrive, and reach its stage where you can really take back from it, or it can really contribute, or it can really be a self-sustaining ecosystem, right? And I think Bangalore has covered that journey.
Yes.
And that journey, I don't think Hyderabad needs that much time. Like, it doesn't need to spend 2 decades. It can leapfrog. It's already leapfrogging, right? With the stuff, the knowledge, the organizations coming in. So there are a lot of lessons that we can learn out of the last 20 years that the way Bangalore has been. But I think the journey has to be, there's no shortcut to that part of the journey where you go through these different milestones, even in an accelerated way, and then reach a stage where you can say that now the ecosystem is thriving.
So Anilesh, I just wanted to bring back one question, interesting question, which is the mind shift. Which is happening. Of course, people like Mr. Das, so they from a fake name all the way into the real name, into the creative world and things like
That's
that.
not going to leave you now.
But what I'm looking at it is, as an individual, as a person who's contributing to the GCC, as a person who's having a lot more creative ideas, I have evolved, or we have evolved as the corporate ecosystem in India, but still, is there been a mind shift happening across the globe, that from a cost perspective to I get more value here, not just like kind of a cost saving? Is this happening across the world? Or if it's not happening, or that mind shift is not happening, or any of these companies missing out, not establishing in India?
First part of your question is this mind shift happening? Yes, it is. That mind shift is clearly happening. That's why you see companies like Goldman Sachs, companies like Bosch, companies like Lowe's, they are very different on the value chain. Right? They are looking at creating new business avenues. It's not just a bottom line capability kind of a focused thing.
Yeah.
It's about being able to use analytics, for example, right, to gather customer insights, unearth new customer segments, figure out newer pricing models,
That's right.
higher profitability, higher margins, and go after that. So that mindset shift is clearly taking place.
Okay.
I think over the past few years that has accelerated. Because everyone is looking around, they're investigating more, they're learning more, they're able to come onto the ground in India, talk to more and more companies and learn from them, and therefore they're going ahead and adopting a lot of that thought process. The challenge where it comes in is usually when they start off with a very positive mindset. They say this makes a lot of sense. They'll put into place a very senior sponsor to drive this entire change within the organization. And then you end up having a fair amount of change that takes place. There might be a downturn in the market that happens, for instance. And that could be a trigger for somebody to come back and say, now let's become cost focused again. And these are some of the cyclic aspects of the business that really kick in. But that's all about how well you've kind of embedded your operating model inside the overall parent organization. Yeah. But anyway, it's a long answer to your question, which was, is that mind shift happening? It absolutely is. And I've already lost track of the second part of your question.
So the second part is, of course, one is the mind shift, which I'm looking at. The second part, of course, is like kind of, is any company or mid-tier companies, if they are not incorporating in India, they still retain that mind shift. Are they losing something here?
Oh, great! Yeah, that's a fantastic question. Answer is yes. And I'll take the example of Carelon, which is the GCC that I set up for Elevance. It used to be called Anthem at that time. And Anthem we set this up in 2000, and the strategy was done in 2017. We set it up in 2018. But this was done several years after their competitor United Healthcare had set up. United Healthcare, if I remember correctly, set up around 2006 or thereabouts. Now, they had so many years head start in building lower cost, high-end capabilities that enhance their competitiveness in the market. So a company like Carelon came in later, and they started from that point in time. Fantastic. So they're starting to do that as well. But you see, their competition had a head start out there. And there are many such examples. So if a company is not here, you are certainly losing out on the opportunity of creating core, I would call them firm-specific assets that impact your competitiveness in the market. So yes, absolutely.
Fantastic. Yeah, that's a survival of the fittest.
I wanted to quickly add the first part of the question where Anilesh was talking about the mindset shift. I think, what I have seen, and again, totally aligned with what he's saying, just adding in is, see, it's the initial stages of the journey of a GCC, be it last decade or now, it's very dependent on the sponsorship that it gets from the home office. It's very, very heavily dependent on the sponsorship, and you have to understand that because that is where probably the core of the journey kind of gets unfolded. If there are individuals at a board level or at a CXO level who has been here and done it in this geography, they exactly know what are the chips that it takes, right? And I've had the fortune of working with similar people in some of my previous roles, right? So when I was working at Giant Eagle, I used to work with one of the sponsors who was there at Target, and he'd been here as an expat. So when we used to talk and communicate, we exactly he knew what it takes for us to get talent. He was trying to build functions, but he knew it was a talent play. And then I did not have to ask. So I think it became an amazing partnership that 1.5 to 2 years when we worked together to build up so many functions. We kind of exploded across all the business functions because the understanding, the sponsorship was kind of built in as a foundation. Many times, and I'm sure we have like a long list of examples, when we see the sponsorship changing or not being there or kind of shaky, the GCC gets passed on across stakeholders like a hot potato.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So that is where I think if the initial belief on why we want to set up this office in this geography and what we want to do with it after 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, if that is very clear, then I think the rest of the pieces are not a difficult equation to solve.
Okay. No, it's like every now and then that's an interesting topic which we also discuss. Is a GCC leader and just a pure administrative manager or a strategic investment? So.
Why don't you answer that, Kumar? See, you've set up a GCC here as well.
No. So for me, is like kind of I put it this way: the initial years when GCC is being set up, I always look at it. It's a strategic investment, and the GCC leader. I think we were talking also previously. So the GCC leader has to spend a lot of time understanding the ecosystem, both in terms of the corporate office or the principals in the US and also the centers in India, and balance a lot. So which means that like there's a lot goes into a GCC leaders investment in time, investment in effort, investment in taking everybody together. But over a period of time, this is where I have seen once the team grows bigger and bigger and bigger, and slowly it's like kind of there are multiple teams coming up. The role of a GCC leader slowly becoming more an administrative in nature and more I would say a father figure kind of a thing, not to get involved too much into the operationalized subjects. But again, it's a kind of again the mind shift which I'm talking about. The leaders also need to build this second set of leaders that brings the fresh air into the team and also makes the GCC success. Otherwise, like it's becoming very, very monotonous. Becomes difficult to kind of manage the large ecosystems.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I've seen some of the GCCs. What they do is they tag on a line function to the GCC head, so that it's not just purely administrative. But not all companies do that. Not all companies do that. What's been your experience?
I think I have lived in both the models, Anilesh, where it was purely administrative with each of the function leaders rolling up to the respective functions and then dotted. And I've lived that role. I've lived the roles where there were functions aligned in addition with the site, responsibility. I think it also goes back to how well this is defined in the overall strategic priorities. If a GCC is a part of the core strategic priority of the enterprise, as an enterprise, when we, and when I say enterprise, it's a global enterprise, right? As an organization from the headquarters in the beginning of the year, we feel these are our 5 strategic priorities, and one of them has a very direct call out of the GCC. I think that clears out a lot of ambiguity that can happen with these roles and responsibilities and who does what and why is he doing this and why is he not doing this and all of those things. If it is kind of mapped out tops down, and this is what I called the tops down part of the change management, because the whole thing as we speak from day 1 to year 3 is a change management and at various levels, right? The top down part of change management is make this a strategic priority, then certain noises already gets cut off. Okay, because everybody knows, yes, it is a strategic priority. We have to leverage the center. I know of some organizations who have made it very clear that if someone in the home office have to grow from, let's say, a director to a VP, they must have an experience of managing a team in the GCC for about a year.
Okay.
And that's by policy.
Okay.
And some organizations have done that, right? So I think bringing in those change elements where tops down, you're making it more deliberated, that your mid management, the VPs, the directors are more invested, because that is where the resistance come from.
True.
At a strategic level, the SLT will always agree that, hey, let's do it. Let's put this in the goal and let's get ahead with it. The resistance comes where it is the frontline leader who's like, if I kind of send this work or get them up and running, what's going to happen to me? And that's human. That's absolutely human, right? So both models have their pros and cons. It's about how it is well articulated in the overall scheme of things. If a GCC leader is given the responsibility of only a site leader, then it needs to be articulated back across the entire spectrum, that what does that mean, and that's an essential and important function. It's not everyone's cup of tea. That also is not easy,
Yeah.
right? Managing, I would say, in one of my previous roles, there were like about 11 functions
Okay.
across technology and business.
That's right.
Right? And each of them had their flair. Now, I come from a retail. Out of my 25 years, 17, 18 have been in retail. So I understand the space, what they are talking about. When someone's talking about peak, or let's say when someone's talking about item or vent, I understand that. So it's easy for me to talk, relate, but not get into it. And that's a thin line. Right? Then my job is there as a coach to tell that, look, this is how you can build your function, grow the next line of leaders. I think that's a responsibility of any GCC leader, to build your next line of leaders, because such roles, if it is pure play administrative, have a shelf life.
Okay.
The moment you add in a function, then the role takes a different trajectory, and you have to articulate that as a function leader, there are two hats, and the leader has to be very well able to know and understand which hat he is wearing.
Okay.
He cannot speak as the other hat while wearing the hat B.
Okay.
Right? It has to be there, because for the function leader, I am owning my AOP.
Yeah.
So then my objective, my core focus is very different. But when I am donning the hat of a site leader, then I have to be function agnostic.
Okay.
And this is a very, very thin line which comes with you spending time in the middle, knowing the pitch, knowing the swing, and all of that.
Right. Okay. Coming back for a moment to that value question that we had. Over time, and you would have seen a lot of these examples, some of the GCCs have been sold off, shut down. What happens in those cases? And incidentally, I have a viewpoint on that, which is, I've heard people saying, so-and-so GCC failed. And I always say a GCC never fails. It's always the corporate strategy that has not been executed properly, or the strategy itself has failed. The GCC itself doesn't fail.
That's true. Objectives failed.
So something in creating that value hasn't come together, right? But what is your take on this?
It's true, and we have seen so many examples, especially in the last 2 to 3 years, where again I agree the way you've put it. It's not a failure from a GCC perspective. It is, and there are multiple components. One probably is the strategy, or the inability of making the GCC a part of the strategy.
Right.
I think that's there. The other piece also is the broader, geopolitical, social ecosystem, right? If the main business, if the business is not doing well, you do not have the luxury of spending.
That's right.
Of first 1 or 2 years, you mentioned it's an investment. It is an investment. You have to invest in talent. You have to invest in infra, knowledge, and everything. If I do not have my surplus, and I'm always chasing my margins, my my gross margin, my day-to-day, paycheck to paycheck stuff, right? Then it's a very difficult proposition for me, and I cannot look beyond the cost. Being a CXO in a home office, my lens cannot go. I know there is a big GCC spectrum out there, and I've spoken to so many of them in the last few years. And there are CX. In fact, last week I was having a conversation with one of the CXOs from down south US, and he was like, "Look, I know the tremendous value that it can bring." And he's a great friend over the years. He's like, my organization is running paycheck to paycheck.
Okay.
I want to do 3-4 things, and I know if I am doing it out of India, I can do it the best, and maybe within 2 years I can bring back all my numbers up.
Yeah.
But right now I don't even have the luxury of even thinking about it. So I think it could be some of those scenarios as well, right?
Yeah.
In one of my roles, it was a supermarket, and supermarkets are always under that margin pressure.
Right.
Very, very perishable commodities and stuff like that. So it's very difficult for them to think of innovation as a big stake investment. And we have to pour in so many, maybe $1 million or $2. You, Bangalore, you work with your ecosystem, bring us off the shelf retail solutions. That's a possibility, and that is what some of the other players are doing, who fortunately have a bigger number going up the books and have that surplus thing to kind of spend and do that. So I think one component is how the business is doing. One definitely is, even if the business is not doing great, there is still a lot of opportunities that can be leveraged out of the GCC and not just cost. So the term value again is very, very relative to the health and the journey of the enterprise, how it is. I mean, we talk about tech modernization. It takes 3 years, 4 years, not today. I mean, you can sometimes it is just about taking a very knee-jerk call in the in the enterprise, and you don't let that roadmap go beyond 2 years.
Yeah.
Like, hey, 2 years we are going to do it. This ERP shift need not take 5 years.
That's true.
Right.
So I think some of those hard decisions, sometimes my personal POV, I feel as leaders, and I'm not taking GCC out of this chair, as leaders, sometimes we do not take the hard decisions when it is required.
Absolutely. And the tech roadmap, which you said, it's an interesting element. We'll connect with you, and then I want to go to him again.
Sure.
Because being a storyteller, he has a lot more story to say. Now the humans and bots working together. So far, like the GCC leader or the GCC person was organizing around the humans. It's more cost saving, and it's their talent search, which is available in plenty. The supply is there and all those stuff. But slowly, is it shifting to the humans and bots working together, and slowly at some point of time, the AI and bots can probably become a site leader?
I'm a science fiction fan,
Okay.
right? So one of the
I'm from a human organization, so I strongly oppose that.
Good
one.
combination.
But like, let's.
it's a good combination, right? So one of my favorite series of all times is Star Trek. And if you've seen, there's one particular one which is called the Next Generation. They have as their
Have you seen Spock out there?
Mr. Spock.
Yeah.
But he's not an artificial intelligence. There's a guy called Data in the Next Generation who's a droid, right? Who's actually taken on the role.
I'll tell you why Spock, guy. Because I have a ear like Spock.
But Spock is a very rational, logical
That's
person,
right.
so which is why I think you relate to it, right? But yes, so I do feel that sometime in the future that's clearly a possibility. I see that happening. But in today's context, right? Yes, a leader has to deal with changing human dynamics and team dynamics the moment you're bringing in bots plus human in the loop. There has to be that dynamics is going to change. But as far as the people are concerned, you're still talking to them as humans.
That's right.
The bots today are unlikely to have emotions for a very, very long time to come. So I don't think from a management perspective, that is going to be a challenge. From their ability to bring them into the fold as human in the loop working together with bot, that is where the leadership challenge is.
So back to you on the AI side and bots. What's your take on it? Especially retail nowadays, it's a lot more.
It's still a fiction.
Yeah.
It's still not a reality, and I'll tell you how many organizations today have the readiness from a data, from a governance, from a security ground up perspective to just launch a full-blown team with AI. I mean, there are a few who are in that state of readiness with their strategic alignment, with the right use cases, with the right way their data is arranged and their data is managed. I think that holds the key, because when we talk of a typical GCC, it's probably a legacy organization, and it's very unlikely, right? And I'm overgeneralizing here, by the way. It's very unlikely that they will have a very clean data, which is very easily we can bring in a bot and we can just plug and play, and then we can build a team of 10 people today. It is a great vision from a board perspective, and we keep hearing it. Let's do something in AI, right? Next 2026, AI is a strategic priority, not GCC. So we will hear all of that, right?
Okay.
But is the unit, is the organization ready to allow let's forget bots, even the regular automations? I mean, if we peek into most of the mid-size or maybe some of the large GCCs also, when we talk about their innovation charter, it is still stuck at hackathon, ideathon stages, right? You bring in ideas, only some of them, which fortunately has sponsors and advocate, they see the day of light.
Okay.
Right? I mean, one of my very old, and this is again maybe a 2-decade-old story, but when I was in GE, one of my green belts, and usually in GE call center, your GB projects are on AHTs and stuff like that, right? It was killed because my vertical leader did not want that problem to come out.
Yeah.
While we all, I mean, so these, while it's there, I think what we also have to understand is today we just talk use cases.
Okay.
When we are talking about AI, the approach, the lens is so patchy that we are talking only solving certain use cases so that we can put labels like, okay, we are AI in supply chain, we are using AI in our kind of customer support and all of that. We are not thinking holistic.
Okay.
When I say holistic, that certain movies, I'll backtrack. Certain movies you remember because they had some two good songs, or there was a character who had an amazing role, right? Or there was one scene that you remember. You don't remember the whole movie.
Yeah.
But that's forgettable. But there's that two songs, and there are so many we have had in 80s and 90s that the songs were great, the movies were not. You call it a real blockbuster only when everything, your character, your story, your script falls in place. That is when you look at it in a totality.
Okay.
So when we are thinking AI, it is not about solving my top 5 strategic priorities.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It is about how can I ground up in a very fundamental way, change the way I am looking at my business processes, the way I am doing business. In a retail world, I can talk about multiple things in my data analytics. I can talk about voice prompted executive reporting on a daily basis. The CEO is like, hey, tell me which stores of mine in the north region were doing well yesterday, and you get all of that, right? So that is a utopian thing, right? If we start very basic, doing our item setup processes, our vendor processes, our supplier processes in a very, very efficient way, and if we are able to bring in AI there, I think that in the upstream solves a lot of kind of those equations. So how much we are thinking, how deep and how elementary we are thinking makes a huge difference.
Okay. In fact, I can tell you from the people-centric organization, or our organization relate to a lot of people related stuff. What's solving me the work from home problem? So
today we are thinking
either
AI,
making people come to office because they think that like bot can take over, or if they are working from home.
as you were saying, we are very far from the takeover part. I don't think it's our generation thing or even the next generation. The takeover part is a lot later, even though people might sell it. I think it's still about where you use it and how you use it. And there are areas where if we use it in a very judicious way, it can really accelerate and have you leapfrog your value journey.
Right.
One question which we can probably dive deeper, being a storyteller, I don't want to miss that part. Being a cricket enthusiast, being a storyteller, being a genetics masters, and also a GCC leader, there are too many hats to kind of wear.
The way he's enumerated it, that's a very interesting comment.
I was like, okay, what else?
So, if you wanted to give a good story for some probably mid-tier companies to come and establish in India, because I cannot articulate that well because I'm not a storyteller, but like I want you to kind of provide that insight. What makes it interesting to come to India now, apart from the large market, apart from the large pool of people, apart from the talented people who are here, and I think you have close to 17 cities where tier 1, tier 2 and tier 3 GCCs are flourishing, and many check boxes which are there. So I want you to give a good story for someone who's looking at this.
I think that itself is a good story, that we have so many boxes today that are being checked. And if we rewind back, 15, 20 years ago, we had to go and convince folks that, hey, you start coming in and we will line up our infra, we will ease out the whole corporate governance part of it. There was SEC program that came in even about 10, 15 years ago. So those were the interventions we required then. Now, you name GCC, the government, the industry, the academia, everybody is jumping in. So all doors are open. Talent, of course, as much as we say it's less, this is why people are coming in. This is why companies are coming in, right? So I think these two are the main factors. That earlier it was only talent and the rest were enablers, but some of these other enablers are now also so well opened up. Each of the states today are in the GCC bandwagon, and they are opening up avenues for one-click setup.
Okay.
Right. So the whole governance process, the whole, I would say, misconception we used to have about how complex it is to set up an entity is all gone. So that part is taken care of. Now, what you have to do is, these are the components that are enablers that will be taken care of and in a much more conducive state today. If I am a mid-market entrant today, I think as long as I have my focus and my charter right, I have the right people to start with. I think that's very important.
Okay.
Everything else today will fall in place, but when you start your unit, it could be your 10, 15 or a 0 to 100 or whatever the story is. Your initial set of folks has to be kind of the core committed ones. The DNA of those people have to be more of entrepreneurial, and treating it like a startup, and getting to that value proposition as soon as possible.
Okay.
I think that does not change, and that is where today, after the 2.5 decades of maturity, you have so much, I would say, available in terms of leadership, in terms of knowledge, in terms of context. Those are the pieces. You don't have to, today's organizations do not have to spend 10, 12 years what others have spent. The targets journey, the lows journey, the target journeys I've lived for 10 years, right? And given an opportunity, I think now that 10 years can be cut short to 4.
Same thing, Dexian, we're talking about.
Right.
10 years need not be your 10 years.
So that's the beauty of it, that today there is so many of these enablers are available as service, as off the shelf offering, as a one-click opportunity, that you just have to set your navigation destination and your route, and who's going to be there with you in the bus. I think these 3 are the pieces.
Okay.
That I know where I'm going in my year 1, and then my year 1 doesn't have to be both my top line, bottom lines are off the charts. No, that cannot be, because otherwise you would not be setting up a GCC to start with, right? Let's be more deliberated. What are my goals in my year 1, year 2, year 3, and what are my milestones? I think one thing we don't often talk about is the maturity curve of a GCC, right?
Yeah.
We say maturity is headcount, but I think in today's world, we have to take the notion of headcount as a metric outside the equation. It's not a metric anymore. I have many of my friends who still love saying that, okay, I lead a GCC which is 2,000 people, 10,000 people. Great, and I think that's fabulous, right? That's fabulous that it is there. But there is also the other part of the story where there are units which is doing amazingly, phenomenally well with 200 people, and that's the goal. They don't want to grow. Right? When I was leading Cabbage, the goal was not to go beyond 200 people. We went up to 300, which is a different story. But that was the goal, right? That 1/3 or almost half of the organization should be here, not more than that. And then you play around with what you have in talent, in terms of what the offerings are, the new products you are building, and how you're taking it back to your core value prop.
Yeah.
I think all those things will come into play. But this is an interesting time to be in the GCC space, because even the government is trying to push.
Every state government.
So if I go back to my cricket way of saying, it's a flat pitch, right? The sun is out, the pitch is dry, the bowler's tired, so it's a good time to go out there and make some runs.
Okay. So what is one fascinating thing for you in India right now for a GCC?
The availability of leadership and the potential that we have out here. It's as simple as that.
Superb. So the time to take the leadership position in many of the organizations.
Yes, it is. It's a fantastic time. And there are so many avenues that, back to the point about ecosystem. The ecosystem has now matured, that, there's
Tremendously mature.
Tremendously matured. You have existing leaders and you have opportunities for leaders to learn from other leaders as well as from academic institutions. So this has become a crucible of learning, actually.
Okay.
And now just ready to explode.
Fantastic. So one last question, I will probably put it, being a cricket player enthusiast. 2027, will we get the World Cup, or the other side is like, would we cross more than 3,000 GCCs? Both.
Wow.
You?
So World Cup for sure, and GCCs, I'm very, very gung-ho about it. I'm not sure we're going to cross 3,000 by the year 2027.
In terms of units?
No, not in terms of separate organizations.
Separate organizations.
In terms of units, yes, definitely.
Okay.
We will. I think I'm optimistic, because every time I take the field, I'm like, yes, we got to win. So, and that's where my personal start point. Yes, we will do it. Then we will reach close. We aim at 3,000. We'll close at 2,900.
Okay. What's a mid-sized organization? I kind of forgot to question this one. I look at it, 500 million is the right size, mid-sized company to establish offices in India. What do you guys think in terms of size?
I wouldn't really I wouldn't really classify it as the revenue of the parent organization. I would really classify it as a potential for what value they want to create out of India. There's one GCC I came across that was doing phenomenal work in India with a grand headcount of 70 people.
Okay.
Right? Very narrowly focused, giving tremendous value to the parent organization.
Okay.
So it's all about the size, the capability that you want to create in India.
Okay.
So 500 million is from the revenue size of the parent company. You can even have startups which are C series funded, coming in and setting up GCCs, setting up core teams to help them accelerate their product development offerings in the market.
Very similar, I think, and this goes back to my response to that googly earlier, that, it is very relative to the stage and the viewpoint, the vision of the organization, right? 70 people killing it because the charter is set like that we want to do ABC, we are doing ABCDE, and that is absolutely fine, right? And to the example of startup, Cabbage was a startup, the one that I set up and I led kind of gloriously for about 6 years. Loved that part of my journey, and they were very deliberated on what they want to do. In this geography, right? And we did that amazingly well, built a great team. We're doing products, we were doing, risk operations, data science out of here, and that was the charter. We never wanted to do XYZ, we wanted to do only ABC. And I think being that deliberated is very important.
Fantastic.
Interestingly, that 70% GCC I was talking about, it's not located in Hyderabad, it's not located in Bangalore, not in any of these large cities. It's located in Indore.
Wow. Great. Thank you. With that,
Pleasure.
It's a very insightful actually. In fact, for me, it's a eye-opener for many of the stuff. Both of you shared a lot, in fact. And more interestingly, it was interesting because a lot of information about the cricket also came. And genetics and GCC is I would never relate it in my life. I got the opportunity to relate it.
See, it's all about evolution, and we are evolving. So
that's right.
It's always there.
I may not be in a position to give you the World Cup. We'll wait for 2027, but I have different cup. I will hand it over to you today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks a
Pleasure.
lot. Thank you. Thanks for
so much.
participating in Dexian
Pleasure.
Talk.
Pleasure.
And we'll catch up on more.
Absolutely.
session again.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Kaushik.
This was a very interesting conversation between our leaders. The way Mr. Kaushik explained GCC leadership using cricket was brilliant. For all the viewers, stay tuned. We'll see you very soon in another episode of Dexian Talks.
We are Dexian, in the business for good.